Everyone, we are live. Want to give everyone a minute or two to come on and adjust my lighting here as well. Cut my hat. Nice hair going on today. So we got a live on my recent trip to Scandinavia. I'll give it another minute or two for people to join in. Let me know how everything is going as well. So appreciate everyone joining everyone on a Saturday lunchtime. I know it's football season. I know I'm in fantasy football. College football season has started. What's going on, Sleepy Rod? So we'll give it a couple more minutes. I know I joined a minute late, and I'll set up my presentation as well. Yeah, it was a fun trip. How's everyone doing today? Let's try it again. All right. Let me know if the sound is working now. My microphone's showing it's working here. I just want to confirm if it's working for everyone else here. All right. So we're gonna get started in one more minute here. Like I said, appreciate everyone joining this Saturday afternoon. I know it's the holiday season, and like I said, you could be doing a lot of things, but appreciate just stopping by if you want to learn about some travel points on what I did in Europe, things I did, things I ate, and some tips I have as well. I've been to Europe a couple of times, but not to this part of Europe. Let me get my charger for a second, actually. Charger. I have to charge my computer. I was working all morning on this slideshow. So here we go. All right, we're gonna get started right now. So apologize for that. All right. So just to recap here, I went to Scandinavia for about 10, 12-ish days. I went to basically from Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and a brief stint in Finland. So I'm gonna have a PowerPoint, kind of go over some stuff, and then I'll go back and forth. So anyway, without further ado, let me get that PowerPoint started and we can get to it. I just want to have a simulcast anyway, so here we go. Let me share my screen, and here we go. So like I said, we'll start at the top here, and we'll go to presentation mode. These are flags of some of the Scandinavian countries you can visit. And so we'll start with the first country here. So in regard before, this was a last minute trip here. This is kind of like some of the miles I had prior to the trip. I think I booked this trip 2 days before departure. So recommend if you have the points and if you have the flexibility. But these are some Chase points, a ton of Hilton points, a little bit of Marriott points. Some of them come from work stays and a timeshare presentation. Avianca points coming from my last video with Player 2. A ton of IHG points because we both have the IHG business and personal card. Player 2 has some city points, the Strata Elite. I have a ton of Alaska points, with the Hawaii card here. And the Alaska business card I got, a couple of Wells Fargo's points because I have that autograph card. Capital One points I always have, just such an easy 2x card. Built points usually through some other ways of food and other miscellaneous ways. Amex points, this is combined between me and player two. I have the Blue Business Plus. She has the Mexico's green and gold card. And then 115,000 American Airlines miles combined between us. She has the personal AA, I have the business, and I also have the Barclays card. So just to start off there. Anyway, is it showing a black screen? Okay, no, I guess no. We'll move on to what was my very brief research. So with 2 days to spare, I kind of broke down the left here, kind of like my destination of nonstop, easier paths to Scandinavia, such as Stockholm, Finland, Copenhagen, and Sweden and Norway. So you can see on the left here, I kind of named the airports, the airlines, some of the points, some of the routes, some of the planes. And those are basically my breakdown how I did it basically. I saw like, for example, if you go to Sweden, their main airport is ARN, and the main airports and airlines, at least non-directly, would be Scandinavian through Newark or United through Newark, and Oslo was similar as well. And if you see there in the middle there, I did fly North Airways twice now. I actually did a video on it a while ago. It's a pretty crazy experience. And I flew North last year from JFK to Berlin for $249 round trip with a carry-on. Just letting you know. So with everything going on here, our primary objection was to try to leave from our home base Atlanta and not reposition with another flight. So with that in mind, as you see with the check mark there, I went with American Airlines as we did a couple things here. So there was one flight that really helped out, especially with P2 working and kind of being flexible with our jobs. We found a flight flying American Airlines Metal, which not sure if anyone recommends that. Haven't flown Metal International in a long time, but the points and miles used for two of us one way. There was only one business class seat available, and I gave it to her. So she got business class, 55,000 on the 787-9 Dreamliner, and I took the leftovers of 35,000 premium economy, booked through the Alaska Air Miles. And you can see here she has business. I have premium economy. There was a choice with the flights between a 1 hour layover from Philadelphia and an 8 hour. We took the 8 hour just because of potential delays and with the work situation. I want to highlight the one thing about Philadelphia that was really cool was if you have the Capital One Reserve, I'm sorry, Chase Sapphire Reserve, you do get access to the Chase Lounge there, or if you have the Priority Pass, it's to me, in my opinion, I've been to all the Chase Lounges in the Northeast, and to me, it's the best one from New York LaGuardia, New York JFK, and Boston Logan. It's the biggest. You got extra games. You got a little bit of pride of Philadelphia in there. Good food. I was gonna put a picture there, but I didn't apparently. But I got a free facial for 15 minutes. So stuff like that is pretty cool. I know people have talked about it. I'll put some videos out in the future on it, but that was my experience. This flight was about 7 hours from Philadelphia to Copenhagen, so it wasn't as bad. I didn't sleep as well. Clearly, player two did. So we'll move on to our first destination, Copenhagen. So why did we choose Copenhagen? Well, it was also about availability. I think people would say to me when I've learned if you're going to do Scandinavia, and people I've met in Scandinavia, is you definitely should do from the north side to south side versus south to north, just because of the weather and in general, it's just a better way to travel, I guess, what people said. But we went the opposite. We went south to north. We did 3 days in Copenhagen, and we did not know this. As you can see in the pictures here, we did 3 days in Copenhagen, and also, let's see here, anyone in chatting? We also went there in Pride Week, which is a big thing in Copenhagen for the LGBTQ thing. And my experience at Copenhagen was very nice. We'll talk about it here, but that was really the thing. 3 nights, Copenhagen. We didn't go out of Copenhagen. We could have, obviously, but where can you stay from a points and miles perspective or cash? So we'll start from left to right here. Hilton had two options, but the points were really high, and the CPV was pretty bad. Hyatt had one good hotel. 8,000 points is really good. The problem is that If you read their story, if anyone's has ever been to Scandinavia, Story Hotel Malmo actually is not in Copenhagen. It's actually in Sweden. So it's actually not terrible. It's about a 40-minute train ride from Malmo to Copenhagen, but still. And then on the right there, there was actually a bunch of Marriott properties. I only put a couple there, but they ran from 40 to 60,000. But if you saw my points, I only have about 40,000. So it's not really a great option for the 3 nights. And then, what's up, Cesar? What's going on? For Copenhagen down there was only one option for IHG members. It was Crown Plaza. The points are not terrible. CPP is like half a cent per point. But the problem with that location, it wasn't center city. So with that in mind, you're probably thinking, what am I going to choose here, right? I'm going to tell you right now, if anyone has been to Scandinavia, one hotel chain has a lot of reach, and it is Choice Hotels. So I chose Choice Hotels because of the fact that I kind of cheated when I was doing this before we left. A big footprint in Scandinavia. And the hotel I chose, based on the footprint here, as you can see on the right here, it has a ton of hotels, from Comfort Hotels to Hotel Admiral to the Villa. So with that, became more about location. And I'm not gonna lie, I was a bit skeptical, but the points are ridiculous. 15,000 to 20,000 points per night. And to show you the cash price, here's the cash price here. So they're on Danish krone. So you can see here, for me, it was $300 per night. So we paid 15,000 for 2 nights. Yeah, 2 nights, by the way. It's kind of weird. 2 nights. And we stayed at the Comfort Hole Vesterbro. I highly recommend that property because it's right on the main road, as you'll see in some of the next photos. And it's good enough space. They have air conditioning. And so, yeah. And the CPP, if you do it right there, that's about 2 cents per point, basically. So if you want to value it. And the cool thing about this property, you can see them behind me. That's literally the video from our room. You can see that's the Pride Parade. And one reason I chose is because, like I said, convenience. It's on the main road. It's next to a Lidl supermarket. It's nice, got a nice lobby. It's next to 7-Elevens, which are very popular in Scandinavia or in general. And I did 2 nights because I couldn't get the third night. Not only could I not get the third night, I couldn't get the second night. So I booked the first night in Copenhagen, then the third night. So that's why I said it was just weird. The availability was just going crazy because of Pride Week, and that was actually the reason why. So, but great property. And let's see if I have. All right. So with this property, it is great in center location, but the issue with has anyone stayed at a Choice Hotel? Has anyone actually stayed at Choice? I have stayed in Japan, and I've stayed at a Cambria in Greenville, but for this hotel, it is as advertised. It is the bare minimum. Uh, they don't provide you extra tissue paper. They don't kind of provide me breakfast. It's a pretty simple and non-luxurious property, if I can say it. If anyone's been at a Choice Hotel, space was adequate, could fit your luggage. The cool thing about this hotel, though, even though it's very basic, is that this one provided a washer and dryer in the hotel, so you can go to the laundry room, wash your clothes, and leave. So that was a cool thing about this property. And then in regards for transportation, which we'll talk about very soon, is that it's about 5 minutes away from Copenhagen Central Station, which I forgot to allude to was that we got to the airport in Denmark. We took the train to Central Station, which was about, I think, 15 minutes, and that was about a 5-minute walk from Central Station to here. So another reason why when you're doing these hotels, strategically look to be near Central train station if you're going to be in the city, and that's what it was. So with that in mind, 2 cents per point. I had one night, I had the book, and so strategically, I chose 4 points plus by person. The CPP wasn't great. I'm not even going to do it in front of you. It was decent. It was a 0.7 cents per point. I chose this for a couple of reasons. One is because of the fact the location was great. It was actually a 3-minute walk from our Comfort Hotel, so when we go back and forth, it's an easy walk. Second, it's even closer to Copenhagen Central Station if you want to take that route. It's about 2 minutes from here. So I will notate this too for people who have not been to Europe, and I've been there, but I haven't experienced it yet. But AC is not always guaranteed, and for this hotel, there was no AC. Now, personally, being in August, the temperature was okay, but if you're there in the summertime, I guess like in July or maybe late June, this might not be a hotel to recommend if it's hot and if you're not used to staying at places without air conditioning. Just letting you know, but it's a spoiler for more to come. So great location, not bad. Points and miles, like I said, I basically just just emptied out all my Marriott points I had in my account. I had about 45,000. So there goes all my Hilton, all my Marriott points. So what did we do in Copenhagen? Well, one thing that's very noted for Copenhagen is the Little Mermaid thing, which we did in the bottom right there. That's always the thing you should do, I guess, just in general, especially from the States. If you like the whole Disney thing, couple of things you can do on the bottom left. Similar to Amsterdam, we've been to Amsterdam, the little houses and the colors by the water. It's a good scene. You can walk around, chill, get good food. And then, like I said, because we were during Pride Week, it was a huge thing. There was a big music festival on the top left there. There was music every day, food, games, stuff like that. And then, like I said, in the middle picture, I think that's the opera house. And you can see on the bottom right, you can see on the right there in the middle, people are actually swimming. It's actually a thing there in area because if you're not close to a beach, they just find some body of water, a platform, and they swim. And of course, one thing that's really known in Copenhagen is a lot of palaces and cathedrals. So that's one thing you can do there as well. We were there for 3 days, kind of took it easy, nothing too crazy. What did we eat? Well, Copenhagen actually to me is actually a little bit more different compared to the other Scandinavian countries that we'll talk about. But as we go left to right here, one thing that's very noticed because their cultures are the same is that there's a lot of fish-based dishes. And so on the left there is called pickled herring. And so the fish is raw. So I ate that. You can see on the bottom, that's how it comes out. And on top is basically how you make the sandwich. You make it with the onions, you put the fish on top of the bread, and then you drip the egg yolk on top of the sandwich. So and then there's lettuce on top. So I just want you to know, I survived. It was good. It was fine. I mean, nothing too crazy. I heard that pickled herring, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, is a Swedish dish, but like I said, they kind of intermingle with their food and culture. One thing that's pretty prominent from what I read and ate was roasted pork. And you can see it on top right. There's a roasted pork sandwich. There's a place. The name is the place there. It's like Swaggle again. It's really close to our hotel, so we grabbed it. P2 said she loved it. And then the bottom is just some more roasted pork sandwich. And then apparently they make a type of hot dog there with onions, pickles, and assorted sauces. So, and then big thing over there is 7-Eleven convenience stores. It's huge around there. Like you can get cheap bites, good pricing. And so that's one thing that's really prominent, I think pretty much anywhere except America. So I am going to stop the slide after each move to each country, but I'll continue if anyone has any questions as well, obviously. So it's like Filmo here. Welcome to the chat. Going in July. Norway's fun. Cannot wait staying at Choice Hotels. Taking the train from Oslo to Bergen. Yeah, I'll talk about that in my Norway chat too about Bergen. I'll tell you what I thought about what I was going to do there as well. So things to consider. I don't know if everyone knows. I know Anthony Venture's in the chat. He mentioned the whole bottle thing. That's a huge thing here as well, the whole bottle cap thing. But I don't know if he experienced this too, and I apologize if he did during his live. But in Scandinavia, there's a big recycling program here. And so the way it works is that when you buy water, usually like a liter or more, you pay for the water and the bottle. And you can see on the top right there, if you return the bottle back basically to the grocery stores or the recycling centers in the markets, you actually get your money back. So either I got 3 krone back. And yeah, this is the only reason I have cash because I got it back from the recycling centers. I will notate that I only saw this in Denmark. I could be wrong, but I was kind of tracking this pretty closely with P2. They charge a 3 to 4% credit card fee when you use your credit card if you're not from the country. In fact, actually, the way I remember is that they charge you a 3% fee on credit cards. If you have like a Denmark debit card, there's no fee. So I want to make that friend. This applies to independent stores and food vendors. So like if you went to a 7-Eleven, they wouldn't charge it, or they went to like a mall, they wouldn't charge it. But if you went to like, for example, like a pop-up ice cream shop or a pop-up hot dog place, they're going to charge the fee. So I want to make you aware, when the points and miles scam, we're going to use our credit cards. You can also bring cash, but I didn't use any cash there. Like I still have the cash right in my hands. So what's going on, JP? Public transit, you're going to find out, I think in Europe in general, but being these are these kind of countries, it was very convenient. They have the intercity trains, they have the public above ground trams, and then they have the underground subways. Very convenient. Everything was pretty convenient. 15 to 20 minutes train ride. We took it, I think, a couple of times to the Little Mermaid thing, and then we walked most of the time. It's a very walkable city, Copenhagen at least. And last thing in the bottom highlight, which is going to be a theme for a lot of these countries. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if this is the Danish krone or not, but they're on their own krone. And out of all the countries I visited, Denmark is the most expensive based on our conversion rate. It's about 6.3, 6.4 Danish krone to $1. To give you an example, my wife is a big coffee person. When she went to Starbucks to get her matcha latte, it was $10. Whereas in the States, it's about $5-6. And then if you went to an independent coffee shop, it was $12. You pay $12 for a matcha latte. So that is the realism of the countries. Belief is that, at least in some of these European countries, such as like Denmark or even Switzerland, is that the citizens are kind of prepared for this kind of raise every year. So for them, it's not a big issue. So let's see what Mike Newland's got here. It says, do they have gift cards you can use if you don't have a credit card to save 3 to 4%? I didn't see it. I mean, I would, like I said, I didn't see that, but I just know, like I said, based on what we talked with them and we saw and we compared some of our receipts, we just know, and we even asked one of the guys, like they're just more pro about their own people and using their own card, which is weird because if you're a tourist, you're basically being charged an extra 4% fee. So we didn't always, and at least for Denmark, we didn't try to go as local as we can just because I'm not saying I want to be cheap, but like I said, when a place has that kind of rate with the conversion, it can be kind of pricey. It kind of reminded me of being in Switzerland, basically. So that's things to know about Denmark. All right, before this, I'm going to kind of stop sharing or maybe we'll just keep going. So in regard for Europe, if anyone's been to Europe, there are mainly two ways, depending on your distance. There's trains and there's planes. And just to go over some pros and cons before I decide what we did. So we'll start with planes. And I've got a little guide here. I did write some stuff down. The good thing is I've been going kind of quick without it, but it's good to know that. So with really the pros for airplanes is that it's going to be quicker, it can be cheaper, and it's going to be direct and quicker. I mean, straightforward. Those are the pros of planes in general. That's what I would say. For cons, there's a ton. I mean, it's not close to the city. I don't know a ton of European countries and cities that are close to the airport. So it's farther, which means you've got to take public transit to the airport. If you have a lot of luggage, it's going to cost a lot for Ubers. You got to go through some airport security. You got to be there super early. So there's a ton of things here that is a big thing. And the biggest thing for me personally that I've been in Europe when it comes to planes, and I've done it a couple of times just to kind of compare, the one biggest thing that's the biggest thing between America, at least when we're comparing travel between Europe or in the States, is their carry-on roll. It's 8 kilograms. So unless you're packing light, it's going to be very hard. It means you have to buy an extra expensive ticket for a check-in. So 8 kilograms is their weight, and they're pretty strict with it. They have weight scales at their gates. And also, I was going to say is that if you've seen the planes, they're the old Embraer planes. They're not even Airbuses. Like I flew one of those old Embraer planes. So their cabins for the planes are super small. They're almost, if anyone's ever flown like a very short haul, like a Boston, New York, those old Embraers, that's what I'm talking about. Really small planes. So those are the cons for flying if you go that route. So in regard for trains, now I'm not talking about Japan, by the way, JP. I'm talking about European trains. There are advantages. One, they can be and cannot be cheaper in regard for the cost. That's one thing I can tell you for trains. The cool thing about trains, and people know this, there's no luggage restrictions, so you can bring in whatever you want. To my knowledge, I've never been stopped. They don't really check you. As long as there's space available, you can bring your luggage. Um, if you stay in the city, which a lot of people will when you stay at hotels and Airbnbs, it's going to be easier to get to the central train station. For us, like I said, it was a 5-minute walk from a hotel. So those are the those some of the pros for leaving in regards for the train. You don't have to waste money on Uber to the airport. You get decent scenery depending on where you're going from, and then also too, it's just so much better. And also because if you're flying within the European detention zones, you don't have to go through any type of TSA security when you're going from train to train. With that, what are the cons? Well, at least in Europe, and depending on where you are, I know like London to Paris has a speed train, but when I was researching this stuff and finding it, they were saying there was nonstop trains. For some of these trains, you're going to do maybe at least one transfer. And we did a transfer for both our train rides here, and the travel time ended up being about 5 to 6 hours. And also the experience can be a little bit better on trains too. You can see here in the picture, much more roomier versus my very small plane seat there. But those are the real things here, I would say. Really, it's the time you're going to be wasting. And then also the fact that on the trains, at least, you will have food and beverage abilities, and there will be bathroom, by the way. There are bathrooms. So, with that in mind, what did we do? We chose the train, obviously, and we went to Stockholm. We did Stockholm for 3 days, and for hotels for Stockholm, it was more or less the same. So, for IHG members, there was only one hotel we saw. It was in Kista. Points weren't terrible. It's a new property, by the way, which I think people will say when you do the points and miles game, if you can target new properties, you will get a very good points, but obviously the reviews won't be in. The problem with this property in IHG is that in Kista, it's not in Stockholm. So if you want to do it, you could, but you're not in Stockholm center, so it may not be worth it. Move to the bottom left. Those are Hyatt properties. Those are the two. There's actually three, but these are the two in Stockholm. Hotel Horizon actually is in Stockholm, but it's in Old Town. I don't have any issue with that one. And then Story Hotel Ridgarden is also in Stockholm Central as well, in the center of the city as well. Move to the bottom. As I alluded to, Choice has a ton of properties. They have like 5 or 6. From the Clarion to Nordic to Hotel C. And then for Hilton, there's like 1 or 2, and they're very high. I didn't really look at the location-wise just because I was already sold on Hyatt. I'm not a globalist anymore, but I chose Hyatt for a couple of reasons. Since I knew I was going to another country after this, and I knew strategically what I need to use my points for, I chose Hyatt because of this reason. And so for that, I chose a Story Hotel Ridgarden. So this property is, I recommend this or the Hotel Horizon, but it's really your preference. And how I look at this property, so I use basically, we had a good amount of chase points. And so it cost 12,000 points per night, 36,000 for 3 nights, and cash per night was $330. So if you want to go with CPP, it was about 2.8. Cool thing about this property, how did we get there? Well, when you land in Stockholm Central, it's about an 8-minute train ride, 1 stop, or a 15-20-minute walk somehow if you don't have any luggage. Cool thing about this property is that it's 1 minute away from your train stop. It's around a lot of restaurants, a 7-Eleven, and my wife's favorite Pep Stop, which is a bakery. So, and it's very convenient. Like I said, you can get to where you want within a minute or two from the train. Very walkable city. Cool thing about this property, like I said, it has a gym if you like, and it's one of those hotels where like it doesn't have enough space in the property, so you get a gym membership to that building next door. It's more of a boutique hotel, by the way. Now, excuse me. Ample room. And the one thing I will say about this property is very nice. The problem, once again, if you're going in the summer, is that there's no air conditioning. We confirmed it. We asked the property. I will say on this property, it does say, regardless if you're a globalist or not, they do get free breakfast. So I get free breakfast if I chose to every morning. So I highly recommend the Hotel Rising. I didn't put on the slider, but if you want to do it, it's not a terrible location. It's just in the Old Town area, which is more south of Center City. It's about a 15-minute walk from this property and about like a 10-minute train ride. So it just depends on preference. Do you want more of a city vibe here in Ritter Garden, or do you want more of a Old Town feel in Hotel Rising? I think the points, if we go back, was 15,000. So you're spending 3,000 more, but you do get more of a scenic water scene you can see in the picture there, and you're by Old Town. So, and like I said, I go by whatever the points value are the best for me. So in regards, what can we do in Stockholm? Well, Lou, a lot of things actually. I actually enjoyed Stockholm more than Denmark, that's my opinion. So on the top left, one thing you should do definitely as you go more north is the museums. And there's the Vasa Museum. It's a huge, huge ship they had. And the story with that one briefly is that in the 1600s, they set sail. The minute they set sail, they sank. Apparently, it was a weight issue, and they realized you can't build massive ships with, I guess, unbalanced with the people in it. So it sank. So for 300 years, it sank. And finally, after in the 1900s, they recovered it. And so now it's there. I recommend that too. It was about, I think, 10, 15 bucks. All you see is the Vasa Museum, but you get to see it from like every angle, from the bottom, first floor, second floor, third floor. It's pretty cool. They show you the story and history of it. So highly recommend. Things we were there in Stockholm. There was a music festival there. They were actually speaking in, I guess, Swedish, which I wanted to backtrack a little bit. Denmark is very English based in regards for the way the people are. Everyone speaks English there. The music concerts were in English. Everything was more in English. As you move to Stockholm, they do speak more Swedish, as in this concert here. So as you get more north, I do think you still see more people speaking English in Europe, but not as much in Denmark. So as we go to the right here, this is more of the Old Town stuff. So you get more of the Old Town buildings on the right with the orange and red. There's like a little touristy narrow walkway you can do. In the bottom right, I went into the Nobel Prize Museum, which is pretty cool. It was about, I think, 10 bucks to get in or 15 bucks to get in. Pretty cool if you're into that kind of stuff. I recommend it as well. Oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, JP. That's pretty cool. I'll talk about the sauna thing later. I got one too. Also in Old Town, they're known for like I guess their stories and folklore. So on the bottom right, there's St. George apparently fighting a dragon, which I don't know how that went, but apparently it's a big thing over there. So that's a cool thing to see too. A lot of things to do in Stockholm include, like I said, just in Scandinavia, there are a lot of palaces, sculptures, water, and then of course IKEA. We went to IKEA. I mean, we didn't go to the flagship just because the flagship was not in Stockholm. It was in some smaller city. So, but you got to go to IKEA, I guess, if you're in Stockholm. And then on the bottom left, as a very walkable city, you're going to see more because of how it is geographically. There's a lot of water, a lot of views, a lot of things to do with ships and cruises, which I didn't do, but you can do too as you walk. You'll see a lot of the harbor. So in regards for what we eat in Stockholm, you're going to also see too, as you go more north, you're going to get a lot more fish-based systems, fish-based diets, I mean. What's going on, Ian? So as we start with the left, the big thing that I read in Scandinavia is the baked goods, which is everywhere. It's crazy. But if you've been in America, so on the left there, those are the Cinnabons there. One is more of a, I would call commercial style Cinnabon. It's got the I forget what the sugar is called on top. And then on the bottom right is more of, we went to that one bakery near our hotel, and you can see it's like vastly different. It's like two different things, but yeah, they're named the same way. So they're basically, those are the Cinnabons we would call in Europe, basically, we got. As we move to the bottom right, so those are Swedish meatballs. If anyone can guess the second one, the second to the right, Swedish meatballs, I can guarantee you it's not the same as the one on the left. So just as a comparison, when we went to IKEA, I got the Swedish meatballs. It was decent. And on the bottom left, we went to like I said, a restaurant in Old Town. Those are the Swedish meatballs on the left. You got Swedish meatballs, your potatoes, and I think those are pomegranate or berries. So the comparison wise, you can see there's a huge difference, not only in looks, but in taste. Like, I probably could eat that at least once a week, to be honest. It was really good. So, in regard for food, as I mentioned, if you've watched any of my videos, I do a McDonald's world tour. I go to every McDonald's in the world. I think I've been to like 25. Not for the taste, by the way, just for the curiosity. So I did go get something that's more just Swedish based. And then, as I said, as you go more north, you're going to get more fish based dishes. So obviously, one day it was a really chilly day. We did fish and chips, and on the bottom, it's called like Skagen bread, basically, which is basically shrimp with toast. Is how I describe it. So those are the things you should definitely eat in Stockholm. And then over there, also you're gonna see more in Scandinavia. They are like super huge with the ice cream and candy. Like whenever you go to a store or convenience store, there's like those old style dispensers for candy where you can like put in a bag or whatever. And obviously, ice cream is super huge. We managed to get a good gelato there, and it was really good. So Stockholm was pretty cool as well. I enjoyed it well. And we got a question here. Ian saying international fast food is a must for me in every country. I totally agree. It's different in the aspect that like it's lighter. It may not be as expensive, but it's just different. It's more of a curiosity to me. I wouldn't say it's generally better. I mean, it's kind of sad when you go to McDonald's in America and it's empty, but you go to anywhere else in the world and fast food is like pretty crowded just because of curiosity and how people perceive fast food, these chains from America. Let's see. QC Man says, oh, wait. QC Man did ask, did you eat the get your meals? Yes, I did. The picture's right there. Like we got on the first day, we went to the mall, we got it. It was kind of the same as in America. And then on the left there, you can see those are the meatballs. As you can see, they're clearly different. Like I said, they make it from scratch. They pound it. They make it into shape. So yeah, it was very eating IKEA meatballs was a very forgetful experience in Sweden, I would say. Did any of the chefs resemble the Swedish chef from the Muppets? Honestly, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. So I'm sorry, I don't know what that is actually. So things to consider, they're similar to Denmark, but a little bit different. Public transit is very similar to Denmark. You've got the public trams above ground, intercity trains, and a subway. We took it at least once or twice. It wasn't too bad. I can tell you that one difference is that I know for Sweden, when you do the public transit, they do it similar to Australia, where like you just swipe your card as a form of payment, or you can use a train card, but you can use a credit card to do the what is it the swipe thing, and then I think they charge you on a daily route. Like you won't see the charge until the day is over. Similar to I think when I was in Sydney. So that's one thing. So they're pretty good with the transit and the credit cards. And then I found out, at least for Sweden, they didn't do the extra surcharge that they did in Denmark. So you can use it at any type of independent place or chain base. Sweden is on the Swedish krone. So if you want to get cash, you can. I didn't use cash at all. Once again, I don't know what my krone is, but I got it from recycling one of my water bottles. It's the conversion is a little bit better. It's getting better, 9.4 to $1. And one thing that's pretty notorious in Europe, I saw more public restrooms, but they were free. There were still some paid ones, but I know in Denmark I saw 0 free bathrooms, but in Sweden I saw like 1 or 2. So that's one thing to know. And just a little tangent, I guess, or sort of tangent. So I didn't put the picture up just because I was kind of just really going crazy on the slides. So if anyone's a fan of Game of Thrones, the people there look pretty close to some of the characters from the game, or from the not from the show and the books. In fact, as I'll talk in my next thing too, I think in my next country, Norway, there was a lot of I felt like, and maybe people can tell me if I'm correct or wrong with George R. R. Martin, but I felt like a lot of his influence from his books was from Scandinavia, because everyone I felt like in this city or in Denmark and Norway, they all had blonde hair and blue eyes. They were all tall. So you'll see a lot of that. And that's what I want to make a note of if you were very observant when you go to these countries. Not that it doesn't really matter, but it was just, you could kind of tell and differentiate between like people that were not from there who lived there, people who were tourists, and people who lived there. More distinct. And you're accusing me then, do we have a daily cap for transit like in London? I don't think there was a daily cap. I didn't even know London had a daily cap. I mean, you kinda just swipe and go kinda thing is how I would describe the transit in Sweden. So, next country was in Norway, and I didn't even go through the transportation because we took a train. It was slightly cheaper, and oh yeah, for the trains, Copenhagen to Sweden, it cost about, I think, 250. Like I said, it was not cheap. For Oslo, it was much cheaper. I'm not sure because I took a bus for the transfer, but it was a train and then a bus transfer. It cost us 130 for 2 people. Really cheap. And it was a much more pleasant ride because my experience, the trains from Denmark to Sweden, as you saw in the one picture, it was pretty old and dated and didn't look good. I don't have the pictures for the one from Sweden to Norway, but it was a much cleaner train, less people, and the buses were very nice and clean too. So it just felt more pleasant and it was also more cheaper. So anyway, for Oslo, we only did 2 days just because of what we planned out. Not that we didn't like Oslo less. I actually, before I started the trip, I thought Oslo was going to be the most fascinating place. But anyway, I'll tell you what I think. Where we stayed, in regard for the points and miles game, it's going to get. This is why I was very strategic with Sweden. I actually had zero to none hotels in Oslo. Obviously, the one they're showing here was in the airport. Hyatt, to my knowledge, had one or none, or possibly a Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And then Hilton had one or none, and it might have been near the airport. And so when I was doing my research, Choice Hotels had, as you can see there, 23 hotels in Oslo. 23, ranging from 15 to 30,000 points per night. And what I will say about Oslo, as I go on the next slide here, as spoiler alert, I chose Choice Hotels, and I'll show the next slide too, is that the strategy for this one here was that if I told you in the beginning with my points, I had about 5,000 Wells Fargo points, and that translates at a 1-to-2 ratio. So I instantly got 10,000 of the 30,000 points I needed. And then from there, we transferred a combination of, like I said, you could do Citi and Capital One or even Amex. There was a lot of Choice Hotel. So we made up the difference with those credit card issuers. In regards for the property chose, this was definitely the best property out of the 4 I stayed at. And I've stayed at a Clarion before in the States. It wasn't as great, but this Clarion was 20,000 points per night. Cat price, $400 overnight. CPP was tremendous. It felt, like I said, a very top tier hotel. The space was tremendous. As you can see, the bathroom was tremendous, and the property itself was tremendous. That great view, and it was a minute from Oslo Central Station. Now, before I say anything about Oslo Central Station, the one thing I realized in Scandinavia as we went more north, except Finland, was that the central stations got closer to the center city. So for Denmark, it was 10, 15 minutes away. For Sweden, it was about 10 minutes away. And for Oslo, it was like so close to the center city. Like, this is a map of all the hotels in Central Station in regard to the main road. There was like 30. In fact, for Choice, there was about 3 hotels within a minute or in Central Station. There was a Comfort Hotel, Grand Central. There was the one on the main road of Karl Johan. And then, of course, there was the Clarion. There was like at least 5 within a minute of walking distance. So strategically, that's the reason why I chose Choice. And the hotel was a great property. You got food, gym, no free breakfast, but it was the way I described Oslo was that for this hotel in general is that they're known for their cruises. So the lobbies were always stacked with people leaving either on a tour or I guess one of those Viking cruises. So it didn't feel like intimidating at all, and everyone spoke English. In fact, our hotel had a TGI Friday, which we didn't eat, but you could see that they knew they had a lot of touristy people there. So that's one thing to say about Oslo. What did we do in Oslo? Well, for 2 days, Oslo, I don't have the picture here, which I don't know, I didn't put it here. But Oslo, if you actually, they're known for that angry baby statue, which I didn't put here, which is in Vigeland Park. But the things we kind of did, we kind of took it easy, knowing that it was 2 days in P2, not me. P2 had an early flight back home. So what you can do there, like I said, a lot of palaces, royal palace, there's parliament. Um, cool thing about that on the bottom left was the opera house. You could actually walk up to the opera house and kind of get a great aerial view of the city. Why we did it? Because it was free to go outside. And the cool thing too is that when you go up the opera house outside the building, you can actually see the view of the city. And also, I didn't go to Munch Museum, but if you're into that kind of art, you can see a Munch Museum from the opera house. But one big thing we did do there, and you should do, is Vigeland Park. It's got a lot of, as you see with that sculpture there, a lot of controversial sculptures there. Which obviously for this programming, I'm going to keep it pretty family friendly ish. But a lot of sculptures, a lot of things that were interesting to see, a lot of weird things people did in the sculptures, I guess I could say. And it's a very nice site. You could spend hours there, just walking around. It's a lot of great scenery, a lot of green. It's about, so it was about 30 minutes from the center city, from Vigeland. So it's one of the most farthest parts, I would say, in my opinion. But it's worth it. And I can talk about public transit in a minute, but that was cool too. And then on the right, which I did in two, I visited a lot of the fortresses. I think we did a fortress in Denmark, but it is the fortress in Oslo. The only difference between Denmark and Oslo for the major one, this one was on top of a hill. Apparently, it was an impregnable one until I think history reminds me the Germans came and they invaded them. So those are cool things we did in regards for Oslo. Let's see here. Filmo says, plan on doing the same hotel in Oslo. I think you should. You can definitely do the other ones, but that Clarum was just really nice. I mean, it was just top notch. I mean, everyone looked very professional with, I think, tuxes and bow ties. And then I'll say a thing too about Oslo. One thing that is very prominent when you hit Central Station is that literally 4 minutes away from Central Station, as you walk to the main road, you're going to see the Karl Johan Road, which is known for him and for his architecture and his contributions for Norway. It's just a big main road for food, shopping, souvenirs. It basically is a straight line road to the Royal Palace and Parliament and City Hall. So more like you're going to hit that road so many times to go wherever you need. But that's another place you could stay, which is, like I said, 5 minutes away from Central Station. Ton of hotels. There's a comfort hotel there as well. And that's the cool thing about Oslo. It was a very nice place for 2 days. One thing you could do that I didn't do. So there is the Viking Museum, but it's closed to I think 2026 or 2027. So Phil, check on that one. I was gonna go to that, but it's closed. You can go to the Fram Museum, which would be like, I guess, your alternate. It's also a nice one too. I didn't go to that one too. But if you do go to the Fram Museum, I think it's pretty cool to do too because you can do a ferry to the Fram Museum, which is a good experience too, which I'll talk about in the next slide. But a lot of museums there, Kontiki, Munch. I mean, I want to mention, I think in regard to Sweden, you can do the ABBA Museum. That's cool too. So that was a big thing in Scandinavia. So what do we eat? Okay, so actually QC Man did have a question. Were things generally expensive in Norway? Um, the conversion rate was much better. It was about 10 Norwegian krone to $1, but I can explain it right now. So, so on the top left there, like I said, it gets more fish-based here. We did eat at the hotel because we were kind of tired. We want to get a nice area view, so we had the hotel restaurant. That was really expensive. But in terms of food, it is. I mean, food for a sit-down place was at least 20-ish to $30 or more per dish. Like this lunch-based thing here, which was basically like a fried fish with a piece of toast, that was like 20 bucks, 20, 25 bucks, I think. And all I got was that. That's all I got. I didn't get anything else. I just got that. So it's not cheap in Scandinavia, even though it's weird because the thing I kind of question myself was that if you're in a country or in a region where you can get fish very easily, why is it so expensive? So it kind of goes back to, like I said, just with the people's salary and how they raise it every year. So yes, I would say I think Europe in general is expensive for a lot of these cities. I would say Germany, if you ever been to Germany, is not as expensive. I know like Berlin is a pretty cheap city when I was there last year. So some parts of Europe are kind of expensive, and some may not be as much. One thing you should definitely eat other than the fish stuff, like the creamy fish soup at the bottom. We I saw a waffle place there. It's in Gronalona, Phil. I highly recommend. It was really good. It's a bit touristy, but it was really good. I mean, it's very light. You've got jam, cheese, and something else there. I don't know what that is. It was really good. Anyway, just go there. It's about a 15-minute walk from Central City. Do exercise or take the train. Train is like an 8-minute train ride. And then on the left is another waffle I got. Not the same thing. Wanted to compare. So waffles is a big thing there. And then on the right, as I've told you, Scandinavia, I felt like the bakery scene got even more prominent as I moved. Like I must have saw a bakery like every block when I was in Norway. It was just crazy. So stuff we ate, a lot of fish-based stuff, soup is something you should definitely do there. A lot of cod. There was cod there. I think halibut. You can get sea bass, stuff like that. So, but it's not cheap though. So unfortunately, that's unfortunate. So things to consider for Oslo that I was more aware of was that when I was doing the public transit, they say to use the Router app because the way I described the public transit, especially in Scandinavia, it was actually kind of an honor system. Like, could you get on the public transit without a ticket? Yes. Would they check your ticket? They may not, but you should just do it just as a good practice. That's what I would say. And so I know for Oslo, I can remember this top of my head, the way they did their transit, they charge you per 60 minutes. So like if you paid your $5 one way, if you can get back and on within an hour, technically you're okay. So that's how I would describe it. It was like 45 krones basically, 45 Norwegian krone for a one shot, and it's within a time frame. So one thing I can recommend, I didn't do it because I just I think if I had more time or whatever, is the Oslo Pass. And basically the way I describe it, it's like $50 to do public transit and events for 24 hours. So the way I would describe it, for 50 bucks, you could go anywhere around Oslo basically for 50 bucks. You can get all the museums, Munch, Kontiki, Fram, Vigeland museums, the Fortress museums. You get discounts on other stuff like the cruises. So when I did my strategic plan for it, like if I actually just hustled for one day, that's the only reason why I didn't do it. You could probably get almost $100 worth in one day if you can do it all in one day. If you're not a hustle and bustle person, then I wouldn't recommend it. But you also get it also includes the ferry, which is a really good deal too, because that's like 70 krones one way. So if you do the round trip with the museum, because the only way really to get to museums is through the ferry, at least efficiently, because it's a straight shot versus if you take the public transit, you kind of have to go around. So for a ferry, it'd be $14 round trip. So if you did the whole museum thing, it's actually good value. Norway's on a Norwegian krone, third country, third different currency. It's much better, but the way I describe Norway compared to the other Scandinavian countries that I've been to, even though the currency is better for us, I felt like it was a much less rich country. Like the people, there was more poor people, homeless areas, was more dirty. But this was the one country I did find that Lannister's pub. If you're a Game of Thrones fan, so that was my reference to Game of Thrones and why everyone there was like blonde hair, blue eyes. So, and this is actually available in all the Scandinavian countries. I just ended up doing it in Norway because I actually flew out, and that there's a high speed train to the airport, and it was about 15-20 bucks. It's one stop, 20 minutes, 15-20 minutes from Central Station. To give you a comparison, it was about Central Station is about 23 kilometers from the airport. So 20 bucks is pretty good. You could probably wing your way with other connections, but you probably would have double the time. Uber, if you did that, was about 50 to 70 bucks, and taxi was about 100 bucks. Was a good comparison. Most use credit card in Norway. As a lot of people would say, or in the inventor would say, I was on a sub for my HG business card, so I used that. I used that the most until I hit the bonus, and then I kind of used the build card. So that was my two main things in general, just because of my spend. It was a lot of food-based stuff. Um, and I think player two had the Amex Green. She used the Amex Green card for the transit stuff. So those were the two cards we mainly used for food and transit. And then I used a Capital One for some of the souvenir purchases I made in the city, which now I want to tell you about that too. That's one thing I wanted to say before I go to my last stop. For Norway, we found out that if you bought souvenirs within the city, like we bought Norwegian salt, some candies, it was actually double the price in the city. So when I went to the airport, and I actually have pictures and videos of it all coming eventually, it was literally like half the price. So if you want to buy like some of that Norway salt or some of the Freya candies, I highly recommend to buy at the airport. It was half the price. I felt like I got scammed. So that's one thing I wanted to let everyone know, at least for Norway. I can't say for Sweden because I didn't go to the airport there, but for Norway airport souvenirs, it was really crazy there. It was crazy. So as for where did I go after that, I honestly went to Oslo, to Helsinki. I only did one day in Helsinki, and I did use my Capital One Venture X credit to book this flight. And the reason I did flying is because there is no train route to Oslo to Helsinki because there's water between them, or at least a big water space. So I used my Capital One travel credit to book this flight. I had to get a check-in because of the weight issue. So that's why I hate flying between Europe. So that was the thing. I had to get a check-in. And one thing too, also I didn't mention, one reason I hate intra-Europe too, and they still do to this day, which I thought 10 years ago when I went, they stopped it. So TSA for airports, they do the whole liquid bag thing where you got to get your liquids. They even have the liquid bags in right before you get to security. You got to put all your liquids in a clear bag so they can see it. So that's the one thing I'll say before I enter QC Man's question and why I hate it. So that's why I checked in all my liquids in my check-in and then went through the hassle because they literally make you take it all out in a clear bag. So QC Man says, how was the Amex availability? So honestly, we didn't have an issue with Amex. I will say we didn't use it as much because player two used Amex Green Card in transit, and then she just used a city card for everything else just because I wanted her to just gather more city points for AA and some of her travels for next year. I felt like there was no issue with Amex in my opinion. I didn't see anyone say they denied Amex. In fact, a lot of the places would show their credit cards, what they accept, and there was nothing saying they didn't accept Amex. So Amex was pretty good in my opinion. Like I was always aware of that kind of stuff when I went to some of the bakeries and stores and malls. Like there was no issues in that part. So anyway, last stop, Helsinki for one day. And the main reason I did it is because, well, player two had to go back home. And just for her situation, since it was a last minute trip, there actually wasn't any business class availability for her, but she did book Lufthansa. And she wants to say, sorry, Chad, she had a horrible experience with Lufthansa. Sorry, Anthony Venture. She did fly economy though, so it wasn't business. But her experience was not great. But it was a free trip, by the way. It was a free trip in essence, subsidized but free. Because if you watched my last video on canceling flights, she actually used the points that I got from Avianca from customer service to book that flight. So all she paid was the $100 tax and fees. But she did fly Lufthansa economy. It was Oslo connecting to Frankfurt, Frankfurt to Atlanta. She didn't like the experience just because the seats were very small. She said she described the seats as frontier space for economy. And the one thing you're going to understand when you go to Europe too is that when you start going between airplanes and airports, she had to take the bus, to get off the plane to the airport. So that's another thing that you may have to experience as well. So she flew back for work. I stayed an extra day because I had an extra day to stay, and I want to fly Finn Air as well. That's another reason why. So I did one day in Helsinki, and JP, this is a spoiler to what you talked about with the sauna. Helsinki, as you go more north, it becomes as more modern to Europe as the Scandinavian countries. And the reason I say that is because the hotel spread, and the reason I don't have Marriott here, and Marriott probably has the same amount of space, is because of the fact that I didn't have any Marriott points. But Marriott had a lot of availability, by the way. But from Hilton, they had a ton. They had a ton of properties. Choice had a ton of properties as well, but I didn't put them as well. Hyatt had one or two, but it was probably by the airport and it was a Mr. and Mrs. property. So I didn't go with those. I actually had a ton of properties as well. So for my situation, based on what I had remaining, I had a lot of Hilton points from like the million Hilton points cards I've gotten. And I just made my IHG bonus and I could borrow player twos as well. So my choice was between two. And also my strategy for one day, because my Finnair flight the next day flew at 12 and I wanted to Finnair lounge, do the whole business class experience, I strategically looked at Center City, how far was from the airport. And so I determined, and there's no wrong answer, by the way. You can stay at the Center City in Helsinki if you want. There's a lot of great properties, but I chose to stay at the airport because of my flight. And I also knew that the transit was about 30 minutes away from the Center City. So I said, you know what, let's do it. So with that, I had a choice between the Holiday Inn Helsinki Verita Airport or the Hilton Helsinki Airport. And as JP has already alluded to, I chose the Hilton for the reason for the sauna in the room. So it did cost me 43,000 points. The CPP was pretty bad. It's so bad, I'm not even going to do the math for you, but you can do it for me if you want. And I chose this mainly because, well, it had a sauna. It had a sauna in the room for one night. And because I got upgraded to the junior suite, they were described this property. It was right next to the airport. It was 5-minute walk, follow the signs, very easy. And because I got upgraded to the junior suite, as a gold member, I don't have this perk, but I got access to the executive lounge. It wasn't anything crazy, honestly. It was fine. The food spread, which I don't want to show, was pretty bad. I went there for dinner just to do for data points. They had one main dish. It was a spicy jalapeno popper. Everything else was like salad and fruits. It was pretty bad. On the bottom right, that's my nice little train I took from the airport to the city. Very clean, very nice. How much did it cost me? I think it cost me like five euros. By the way, spoiler, Finland's on the euro, so yeah, it was like 5 or 7 euro one way, I believe. 30-40 minute train ride, not too bad. You got to see a lot of the city and scenery anyway. And then obviously I went there for my room. I got a junior suite. I got the sauna. That was pretty cool too, as you see with a lot of countries, especially the Scandinavian, they have a sauna in the room. So that was a thing. Let's see here. QZ says, it was crazy how much time you had to put in to get your points from Avianca. Yeah, if you watch that video, I spent 6 months of calling between Avianca and Air New Zealand. And I called multiple times for 6 months, spanning from January to July. But in the end, I got 40,000 points of Avianca for really a situation I didn't really actually deserve to get it back. So, it just shows that if you're persistent and you try, you can get the points back. What to do in Helsinki for one day? Well, here's your 24-hour, what can you do? So, did a little search here. So, Helsinki sign, not a lot of them in the world. If you like to do signs, I got a Helsinki sign. Like I said, with any country, there's a ton of cathedrals and Scandinavian stuff, palaces, which you can do. You can see the one in the center is the Uphinski Cathedral. Bottom is is near the Royal Palace. And oh yeah, now that I have the picture there, one thing you'll see a lot, and I saw in all 3 countries, is basically like in the late morning they do like a stroll with the military, where they go from I think Center City to the Royal Palace and they do like a march. I'll put a video up later sometime soon. Otherwise, cool thing about, like I said, with these Scandinavian countries is this architecture and sculpture. On the bottom right, I don't know what you want to say about that guy's head. You can kind of make your assumption on what that is. They had that little shingle kind of park. I went there, and then on the left, a lot of parks, a lot of green. And then one thing they said online was Stockman's, which to me, I would describe it as a poor man's Macy's. It was very poor. It was very poor. Poor in regard for like, I don't know, there's nothing to do or buy there. So, like things to do there, like I said, that kind of stuff in Helsinki. You can do obviously the dinner cruises, the ships, and I don't know if it was Filmo. We can look back in the chat here. Filmo, I think it was Filmo. I did not go to Bergen, just to backtrack, just because of time, but that was one place I definitely want to go. Definitely like to hear your experience if you do go to Bergen. So that was cool too. On the right there, one thing I did not see as much in the other Scandinavian, they have the whole big food market, like the outdoor markets with vendors and restaurants. That was kind of a big thing in Helsinki. And the reason why is because it's got a great backdrop of the churches and the water and the museums. Definitely super close to get there. I think it was about 15 minutes to 15, 20, it was about 15 minutes. It's in the center city. It's about 10-minute walk from the center city. So yeah, I mean it really was. It really was like a homeless man. I literally was there for like a minute. I went in and I went out. I know, yeah. So one thing I will say now that reminds me, it's more of a Europe thing, not because it was very nice weather, but air conditioning, as I mentioned, it is in most of the hotels most of the hotels. But I will tell you, in the airports, I felt like no AC. In the stores, definitely no AC. I went to like Uniqlo and other stores, definitely in Sweden and Copenhagen, no AC. Just letting you know, if you're that kind of person where you're very warm, just be prepared. AC is not a thing there. Apparently in Europe, and if anyone's European, they just get used to that kind of thing. Airports and stores and all that stuff. So, and one last recommendation before I get to my last slide and the food is that if you can drink the water there, by the way, in all the countries. I personally did it a couple of times, but when I started, I was a little bit hesitant. But if you do buy water per se, as people have said, make sure to buy water in the supermarkets and not in convenience stores. While it is great to buy at 7-Elevens, you get like a liter for the same price as like a 12 ounce in the convenience store. So just letting you know. So then my advice is to bring one of those swell bottles to store your water if you don't want to go that route. You can drink water there, it's totally fine. They recommend it. It's up to you. What I eat, I was only there for a day, so yeah. McDonald's World Tour continued. I got the chicken Big Mac, and on the left, I got a huge thing to eat there was called Vandas. It's like a type of fish, and then the fish was really good, like the salmon. I think there's calamari rings, which may be potatoes. So that's the one cool thing about being in the Scandinavia. A lot of good fish stuff. If you really like fish, shrimp, definitely get it there. I think that meal was like 15 bucks, so not too bad. Chicken Big Mac was like 6 bucks. So for one day, I was pretty stuffed. And one thing we found out too in Scandinavia too was a lot of dates. Dates was a big thing. We brought a lot of candy and dates back. That's one thing that's really prominent. I said in Scandinavia. So that's a pretty cool thing too to do too and eat. And for my flight back home, I borrowed P2's AA miles just based on what was available at last minute and what I could book with some of the code share partners. I couldn't find on British, couldn't find on Iberia. So it's about an unusual route. My recommendation for this route, if you can find it, is take the ORD route based on where I was. Because if you think about how the route flew from Finnair, I basically went around and came back to Atlanta. I did fly first class back from Dallas Fort Worth, and I did do the Capital One Lounge, but still. Flight review coming. Finnair, very nice product. I've flown 5 European carriers. Finnair, Virgin Atlantic. I did do the A330 on Virgin Atlantic. ITA, old product. There's a couple more. ITA. ITA overall, of the 5 European ones, but I haven't done some of the good or better ones. Finnair is definitely the top, just because the soft was tremendous, and the way they see the seat of the angle here, because it's so high, you get really good privacy. So it's almost like a privacy door, but And also, just in general, the wireless charging was really cool, which I'll talk about video review in the future. But yeah, Finnair review coming. Great product. Food was okay. Soft was the best, hands down. So wanted to get anyone and what they thought about what I said about my review. Any questions we have right now? Anything you want to say in regards for what I thought about it and what I thought about just Scandinavia in general? Put your comments in. I will say, if you want, I do have a membership. I don't advertise as much. Shout out to Mike Newland as my member. I do weekly lives. If you're at the highest level, we talk about redemption strategies. I have about 4 live videos I've gone out. I put out weekly member videos on some, not as much credit card videos because I do the main stuff for credit cards, but it's more travel redemption stuff on the member videos only. So we've talked about transfers, avios, stuff like that, videos on how to book certain ways. I think I did one on how to fly to Dubai kind of thing. So those are kind of things to do with the membership. Totally optional. Don't have to do it. Totally cool. In regards for anything upcoming, just because I don't know if I'll do a live in a while. This was a last minute trip because I had my points booked for the next 6 months. So this was kind of points I just felt like I want to do before some person stuff coming on. In regards for what I have coming up, next month I have the big Istanbul trip. Shout out to JP. I definitely got inspiration from you. I booked the Park Hyatt for one night for that sauna place. Thrilled. So I'm going to be in Greece. We're going to do 5 total days in Greece, 2 in Santorini, 3 in Athens. We'll move 3 days to Cappadocia. We'll do the cave hotel for 3. We'll do the balloon, and then 3 days in Istanbul. So that's the big trip in the fall. I might do something in the later. I haven't decided. I might just take it easy. Probably not. And I got Japan in the winter, and then it's also part of my around the world trip in the spring. To answer Filmos, yes. Oh, actually, excuse me, man. First, what was your approximate out of pocket after using points for the trip? So it's a good question. I actually have all the receipts here. Like, I have all the receipts here. I haven't gone through it, but I can definitely tell you. Transportation was obviously the transportation food obviously your biggest expenses. And we did kind of keep it easy with the food. We only ate one big meal and then a lot of snacks. So I can tell you with the transportation and the food for 2 people, obviously, it came out to easily to $1,000 between us. I can tell you at least 1,000. I can't say if it was slightly more or less, but I can give you a ballpark. And that's being through, like I said, that's 4 countries and about what, 12 days. So could there have been other ways I could have done better? Sure. But just on a last minute trip and some souvenirs, I could tell you it cost at least $1,000 between people, between food, transportation, and some souvenirs. So anyway, segueing to souvenirs. This is Sweden. I got the wooden horse. It's just known for good luck, prosperity, that kind of stuff. It cost about $20. Let me answer Film. Also, all I got on that flight was the blueberry juice. I did get some drinks, but yeah, the blueberry juice was really good. Like I asked the flight, what's the thing to do here and drink? Like, get the blueberry juice. I got it at least 3 times. So if you're doing Finnair, get the blueberry juice. Move on to one of my prize. So this is also so one thing with me with the souvenirs, I like to get a souvenir where it's not as common to get. So when I was what gives you I didn't see this souvenir anywhere else except in that shop. So it was a nice Viking museum I got. Pretty cool. Apparently there's a big thing in Helsinki, the movement thing. I don't know. I got it. It's pretty cool. And here's one souvenir that's really not, and this is actually why my cost was kind of high as a souvenir. So I've been looking for the Osmo Pocket 3 for a while. In the States, it's like sold out and slightly inflated. I think right now the Osmo Pocket 3 without the credit card was about $800. I was actually in Denmark and I got in Denmark because it came out to about 550 USD conversion. So I saved about $200 plus getting it. And I asked the guy like why, and my only assumption was that I think the demand for that product specifically was just not there, and that's the reason why. Like I have a picture. I can send you guys a picture of what it looked like in the store. So now I just add this with the Sony. So just kind of enhance my travel game and my so that was really my biggest souvenir. Really, those kind of stuff. I mean, obviously you get the magnets, stuff like that. I mean, and you get the currency. All right, let's see what we got here. How did you like the Capital One Lounge? If we're talking about Dallas, I've been there like 5 times. The wait was pretty good. I like how you can do like a reservation on the app now. Like you can like see what the wait list time is. So when you land, if you know, you can see the 10-minute wait and you can put it in there. So by the time you get to the lounge, you can you'll get called upon basically. So that's what I did. Dallas Fort Worth is always the better lounge. I've been to like 5 Capital Lounge. It's definitely the best one, flagship one. Food is always good, and I don't have any problems. I mean, it's a great lounge. Capital One lounges, Chase lounges are the top tier for me. I've been to so many Amex lounges now. They're okay, but just because they're kind of like they started it, it's hard for them to get better space wise. Food wise, obviously, yeah, but Capital One lounges, Chase, I say number one, then Capital One, then Amex. So, in my opinion. Ian says Pocket 3 is epic. It really is. Though honestly, I have so much footage, I haven't even gone through it. So it's so super convenient. It's I recommend it too, just for footage wise, because it's been so easy for being discreet. And if anyone knows too, like I always ask the flight attendant if I can film. So for Finnair, they said fine, it was great. So that's one thing too I will say. Let's see. Guzman, did you get any good Scandinavian vodka? No. I'm not a big, huge drinker, but it's definitely something I can consider in the future if I ever go back there. But it was a great experience. Otherwise, was there anything else? I don't want to leave everyone. I know today's a big Saturday for everyone. College football, family. I'll give another 5 more minutes and then I'm going to just sign off. I appreciate everyone listening and joining. I want to give a shout out, obviously, to Mike Newland, channel member, and of course the super chat, which let's see, super chat from Mr. Anthony Venture. Thank you for joining. Appreciate and QC Man as well, especially the engagement as well, and also everyone else who's been on here too. I don't really expect much. I just want to share it. I just want to kind of throw out there if anyone has any questions in general, even in travel, not just Scandinavia, if you have anything as well. Happy to answer any questions, you know. And then obviously, if anyone has any tips about Istanbul, I do want to ask anyone does it. I think I'm going to go to Uber route from Cappadocia. But if anyone's been to Cappadocia, let me know, because my one thing I'm trying to find online, I haven't on Reddit, is that I think maybe so I know from my hotel you can do a hotel car service. It's 30 euros, but I don't want to pay it because he wants to do cash. Not that I can't pay cash, but I haven't been finding. I've done Uber and they're not really showing like a pre-booking for Uber on Cappadocia, but I want to know if it's cheaper, how much cheaper it is and how much easier it is basically, because I don't like the fact when I go to Turkey, just like in Egypt, right? They say, hey, we want 30 euros or the conversion in USD, because I know Istanbul's on the Turkish lira. So just like with Egypt, they're on the whatever currency they're on. But yeah, they'll take anything except their own currency. They'll take the USD, they'll take euro, they'll take Japanese yen. Like they'll take anything except their own currency. So I don't like paying, those kind of businesses or hotels or services when they want the better currency, because then they're inflating the price of their service, if that makes sense. Meaning that like it could be like 80 Turkish lira, but because they know we're American or European, they're gonna upcharge you and give you the euro or USD. So I have not been to Africa, QC man, but I have formulated a plan to do it, and it would be a combination of possibly Star Alliance United or the other route what people have recommended, which is Qatar Q Suites. I would do that route too, because you can do USA Doha to Kenya or South Africa, or there's a lot of routes. I would consider that route and do the whole safari thing, or do a South Africa kind of thing. Sorry, Kizman. Africa, yes. So I went to forget. I went to Egypt in May for Player Two's birthday. So we did Egypt for a week, and we did, you know, pyramids, right? You got to do the pyramids, Grand Egyptian Museum. We did the dinner cruise. So that was one of those bucket things you got to check off when you go to Africa and Cairo, because Cairo in general, and I didn't do live on this. It's a very poor country. It's the only reason why there's things going on. I will say, glad you mentioned it, for Cairo, the travel advisory for Cairo or Egypt is pretty high, but if you stay in Cairo, you'll have no issues. They treat you like they treat you very well, because I stayed at the Intercontinental and the Waldorf Astoria, and it's very protective because they have like the guards when you go through to drive up to the hotel, where drop somebody off. They have like they have a dog. He checks the trunks and everything and stuff like that. So if you stay at a good hotel, like I stayed at the Intercontinental or the Waldorf Astoria in Cairo, you'll be fine. And then, like I said, just don't go near the border. Do all the touristy stuff. The markets, the bazaar, pyramids. You can go to Memphis, Luxor, all that kind of stuff. You'll be fine. We did tour groups. We did through Viator, through Rakuten or Capital One. Totally fine. So highly recommend. And then we did for that trip, we did Qatar Q Suites. I did the stopover program with Cairo and Doha, and then I did Q Suites on the way there and back. And that was pre-booked, I think, a year in advance. And I got that in before the taxes rose. Our taxes were like $70. Let's see here. Thanks, Phil, for joining. Ian says Lufthansa. I doubt it's a 747. I doubt it. I doubt the 747. Maybe I'm wrong, but I usually think they put the 747 on more popular routes, but maybe that's a very popular route. So, no Airbnbs in Cairo. I mean, all right. Sorry, everyone. So, yeah, I had a connection issue. So, I don't know. I wouldn't recommend it. I mean, like I said, you got to do your research. I wouldn't do it, but I mean, if you can leverage your points and miles, good hotels, it's probably better. I mean, but it depends. Like, if you have a big family, it might be consideration, but that's just based on your situation. I will drop off in 2 more minutes. 747 is a great experience too. I just did it on Korean Air earlier this year. Korean Air stock product, not the best, but the experience, yeah, not bad. It was pretty cool. I would not recommend Korean Air unless you're doing the 747. You could also do the 787s too, because the new cabins with the wireless charging and the partition door, it's great. But in regard for stock product, I thought they were pretty bad. I mean, I thought they were in the lines of European carriers. Like, they didn't want me to take pictures of myself, apparently. That was how bad it was. So I just want to give a shout out to everyone here. And I want to also give a shout out to Mike Newland, gave me memberships. So that means that there'll be more people watching my videos or the lives. And I appreciate everyone joining, listening to my content. Same for lives. Let me know if you have any questions on anything I've done, any redemptions. Happy to help out. Appreciate Anthony Venture on the shout out and the super chat, Mike Julian as well. And oh yeah, I have been to the lounge in Frankfurt too, Mike Julian. If you're talking about the Lufthansa one, it's pretty nice as well. It's pretty crazy that they serve alcohol for breakfast, but that's just my opinion. But I'm gonna sign off. I'll let everyone go off. Enjoy a weekend. Appreciate everyone joining. I'll see you all on the next one. And if this is more, I might do more lives in the future. If anyone's interested, I could do one next month on Istanbul. So anyway, I'll see you all on the next video.